So I haven't done one of these for a while. But I thought I'd do one today because I had a great day, a very interesting day.
I think you're so cool, but really you're so powerless. You're powerless.
Yep. So now that's my 12-year-old son.
Powerless.
That's my 12-year-old son
You think you're such a
who's
big
saying
powerless.
that I'm powerless. That's true. I am powerless. It's absolutely 100% true. It's not me that has the power.
Sometimes.
It's not me that has the power.
Let go.
It has the power in letting go. You're 100% right. Thank you for that. I'm going to
Welcome, Father.
share that with all the YouTube viewers. That's my 12-year-old son teaching us. So it's actually now a little later, 2 o'clock in the morning now it's the 2nd of May, and I look back at the footage that I've just put on and noticed how angry I was looking when my son shouted out to me. And I was sort of thinking, I can't leave that on, I can't let people see that. But, I thought, really, it's fair for me to do that, especially as I have been known to catch people on camera doing the same thing, so I think it's important that I reveal a bit of that. Anyway, I'm sure you'll have your views as to what that was all about. But children do have a way of sharing and challenging us and pointing things out to us perhaps we don't want to see in a way that can be very challenging. And but I do thank my children for it on some level. Anyway, so I had a very interesting day and I wanted to share it with you, and in particular I wanted to just share with you what I experienced and be really fascinated to hear from people what they think about this. And I'll try and keep my own thoughts, my own interpretations to myself for the moment, and just share with you what happened. So I went into town today on my bike. Sorry, the lights keep going out. I went to town on my bike, and I found a gathering of about 1,000 people for May Day, which is a day for workers traditionally, and there was a whole mixture of people, some Turkish people. It was a bit strange. And amongst them, in this sort of area, there were 20 young lads or so, 20 or something like that, who were dressed in black and their heads were covered, except for their eyes. And I knew in the back of my mind that there was some legislation about police forcing people to take these head coverings off. But there were about 60 police officers around. None of them did a thing. The guys carried on with their coverings. And at that stage, at the beginning of this march, one guy came up to me and asked me, what I was doing with the megaphone, because he didn't really understand it, and I was sort of making jokes, and he wasn't sure about it. And we ended up getting into a really interesting discussion. And he was telling me that anarchists and various factions of people over the years, over the last 100 years, maybe 100, 200 years, have gathered and in large protests and stopped governments doing things that to the people that were oppressive, and that information has been suppressed from schools. So the school children don't learn that type of history anymore. So instead, these gatherings and protests just get turned into freak shows, and people look at these, people protesting and think, a bunch of freaks. And that was kind of my experience, sort of accompanying this march. And so I went on this march. I was kind of doing my comedic stuff as I do, and about, I suppose, half an hour into the march, I noticed that the police officer pointed towards this guy that I'd met. Now, this guy, as I said, he had a coloured scarf. He didn't have a black scarf. He had a coloured scarf, and he had regular clothes. He wasn't in black, and he identified himself only as G to me. I said to him, "What would you like to be called?" And he said G. And I didn't get his number, and I wanted to interview him actually about this. But what happened was the police officer just all of a sudden in the middle of the march just shouted, "Yeah, him over there," and just pointed towards this guy. And these policemen approached him and said to him, "Right, take off your mask, reveal yourself." To which he said, "Am I obliged to reveal myself?" To which the officer said, "Yes, you are." To which he said, "Under what law am I obliged?" To which the officer said, if I'm not mistaken, something like section 60 AA of PACE. To which he replied, what's the wording of section 60 AA of PACE? And at that stage, the police officer says, right, you've got 3 seconds to take your mask off. And the guy says, I'm not refusing, I'm just asking you what the wording is. And he says, right, you're arrested. And off they took him, and that's the last I saw of him. So, without sharing my interpretation, I'd be really interested to hear what anybody has to say about that. Just one further thing, a further question, which again, this particular question is a question that I asked a few police officers, quite respectfully, and I encourage other people to ask officers the same thing, and I encourage officers to respond here on this forum if you want. I said to officers, are you aware that corporations have significant influence on the government? And they said, yes, of course we are. And I said, well, in that case, is it not true to say that to some extent, to the extent that they have this influence on the government, to some extent you are working for the corporations? Of course, that particular concept was something that was not very well greeted. I mean, they weren't rude to me, these particular guys, at all. They just said, no, we obviously don't agree with that. And I can understand why they would deny that, but that's just a question, another question to ponder on.